And now I offer these words adapted from Reverend Kathleen Mateague to call our hearts and minds into a spirit of worship. We come together to remind one another to rest a moment on the forming edge of our lives and to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment. May we find in this time awareness and gratitude, and may we feel in one another's presence a reflection of the memories and heartbreak, the hopes and dreams that makes this time together so meaningful.
We are the Halbert family, and we are lighting this chalice this morning as a symbol of our UU faith. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the helping hands. This is the church of the loving heart. Our congregation's chalice has been lit, and it will have its own screen throughout the service. If you have your own chalice at home, please light it now. Bye.
Now I want to share a story that has been told for thousands of years. It wasn't written down at first. It was just told around campfires, like a folktale. Then it showed up in ancient writings that are now in the book of Genesis in the Bible. It's a myth, the kind of story that helps people understand something about how the world got to be the way it is. The story is about what should people do when they get mad with each other, when they think that maybe God is mad with them. The story tries to answer why bad things happen, like storms or floods, and why good things happen, like rainbows. You know, we're still talking about these things today. We still try to make promises to be good, covenants with each other, and we try to learn what to do when we break our promises to each other so that we can survive the storms together and live on the planet Earth in peace. I hope you like this story as much as I do. Even though it probably never happened just the way they're going to tell it, it gives us a lot to think about. Sean, would you play us the video now?
Stories of the Bible. Noah and the flood. This is Noah.
Hey!
Noah was a good man who tried to do the right thing.
Yeah!
But in the time when Noah lived, he was the only man on earth who was doing the right thing. All the other people on earth were doing evil things and hurting each other. This made God very sad. So God said that he was going to send a flood to the earth that would destroy every living thing on earth because he was sorry he ever made them. But God decided to save Noah and his family. God told Noah to build a boat and fill it with 2 of every kind of animal and bird.
Colors, birds, moss, okay, all here.
Noah did just that, and then Noah and his whole family boarded the boat and waited for the flood to come. The rain fell hard for 40 days and 40 nights.
Whoa!
Water covered the whole earth, and the boat floated safely on the surface. Water covered even the highest mountains on earth, but Noah and his family were saved. God remembered Noah and all the animals on the boat. God sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the flood began to go away. After 5 months, the boat came to rest on a mountaintop. A few months later, the other mountains could be seen. 40 days later, Noah opened a window and released a raven. The bird flew back and forth until the flood had dried up. He also sent a dove out to see if it could find dry ground, but the dove couldn't find a place to land because there was still water on the ground. So the dove returned to the boat.
Oh, hello again.
After another 7 days, Noah sent the dove out again. This time, it came back with an olive leaf.
Oh, bingo.
So Noah knew that the flood waters were almost gone. A week later, he sent the dove out again, and it didn't come back. So many months after the flood began, Noah opened the covering of the boat and saw that the ground was drying. He waited 2 more months, and at last, the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, "Leave the boat, all of you. Release the animals so they can be fruitful and multiply throughout the earth."
Okay.
So Noah, his family, and all the animals finally left the boat.
See ya.
Noah built an altar to the Lord to make a sacrifice to God. God was pleased with Noah's offering and said to himself that he would never again destroy every living thing on earth. God blessed Noah and his sons and promised them that he would never send another flood. He gave them the rainbow in the sky as a sign of this promise to Noah, his family, and all of mankind.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Thanks for that wonderful story and song. We're reminded that we all need to come together to travel through the hard times to get back to common ground. Something about being on the ark was making me think a little bit about quarantine.
Thank you to our choir. That was our voices of our own church choir that were singing there. So good to hear them. I suggested that people bring to this service a rock or a stone. Even if you didn't get that message, I invite you now to imagine a rock or a stone held in your hand. For many people and in different religious traditions, a stone is a reminder of things of the spirit, of the heart. People place stones on other stones at grave markers or in piles at holy places of pilgrimage. At Henry David Thoreau's home site in Walden Pond in Massachusetts. People have been bringing rocks from around the world to pay tribute to the thoughts and ideals of that Unitarian writer for over 150 years. There's something about the ritual of placing a rock into water or onto the planet Earth that relieves us of carrying the weight of our emotions by ourselves. The ground of Mother Earth can receive all the pain and sorrow, the joy, the love, when we place the rock on the ground that holds us all. Meditate with me now. As you hold your rock in your hand, may you imagine it holding your love. It carries hopes for the future or sorrow at the ending of someone you loved. Maybe your rock is just part of the tumble of many emotions, confusion or complexity, small or large, meaningless or filled with too much to say. Or maybe your rock is heavy with grief or anger, shame or regret. Maybe it needs to be washed clean from all the anguish. Whatever your rock means to you, the time has come to give it to the earth. You may place it on the ground later on after our service, or you can place it now in water or someplace close to you. For all that has been hurting our hearts, for all we love, the ground of our being now holds it for us, and we can begin again, renewed. We forgive ourselves, we forgive each other, and we begin again in love.
For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible.
We forgive ourselves and each other.
For each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others.
We forgive ourselves and each other.
For the selfishness which sets us apart and alone.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit.
We forgive ourselves and each other.
For losing sight of our unity.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness.
We forgive ourselves and each other.
Amen. Thank you so much to the choir of the church and to Scott and Sean for their work putting together that tribute. My father was a Congregationalist minister in the Liberal United Church of Christ, the UCC, which some people say means Unitarians Considering Christ. The UCC and the UUA have common ancestry. We both traced our roots to the Congregationalists, the Pilgrims of New England. My memory is in Sunday morning services, they would include something called the Confession of Sins. Now, when I was a very wise teenager, I decided I didn't believe in original sin, or actually I didn't think I should have to confess any sins because I didn't have any sins. So I stopped doing it. Well, the older I've gotten, the more I've discovered I fall short of my ideals all the time. I hurt others by being short-tempered. I've hurt myself by not always making the healthiest choices in life. I have been blind to truths I should know, and I have been arrogant enough to think I know it all. I've never killed anyone or cheated on my taxes or robbed a bank, so in that sense I haven't sinned, but I know I fall short of my ideals. And so actually now, I find power in confessing my shortcomings and asking for forgiveness. I ask for forgiveness from those I've harmed, from the universe, even from myself. I found that when I am feeling most likely to cause harm by being mean or small-spirited is when I have lost touch with the ground that holds me. So when I'm kicking myself for falling short of my ideals, I always ask, what is the solid ground of my being? What matters most to me? What is it that holds me even when I am weak? These are important questions. In our many relationships in family, at work, in church, in our wider world, we all need to find the ground which holds and supports us because we're pretty fragile people. We need ground and we need to feel that solidity so we can pick ourselves up after we fall. I'm sorry, Dawn, that's a sensitive point for you right now, but after we stumble and fall, we need to be able to pick ourselves up. We need to be able to feel renewed and ready to move forward on the pathways ahead of us in our lives. The Jewish holy day Yom Kippur comes at the end of the Rosh Hashanah 10 days, reviewing the old year now past and freeing ourselves from the wrongs to be able to move forward into the new year. Yom Kippur gives people a chance to make amends, to ask for and give forgiveness for shortcomings in the past, so that new starts and new pathways can be begun again in love. Today for us in this congregation, we are at the last Sunday in this month where our Soulful Sunday themes have been renewal. The Sundays in September offered us the blessings of the elements for our renewal. The water was an ingathering. The inspiration of breath last week. Our balloon celebration, we lit up light. On this last Sunday of the month, I want to remind us all about ground. Remind us that we need to be grounded, both on the earth, but also on the solid foundations of our deepest values, on that which will give us the strength to move forward in spite of our own weaknesses. The story I told today, the ancient tale of Noah's Ark, is a story of the way covenants are broken and then restored. This has happened forever. People let each other down. God even lets people down in the story because they thought that their sins doomed them. The flood set them off adrift, but they did have that boat to hold them. It's kind of like when we feel like we've lost touch with the ground, when we're confused or lost. when we've lost touch with our own true values. When the anger and the storm finally calms down, when God repents of his anger, he decides to make amends and says, the new covenant, the new promise is this. When we begin anew, anytime covenants get broken and people behave badly, they don't have to be destroyed. People can rediscover and return to the solid land again. And the rainbow is the sign of this promise, of this new covenant. I think the fable tells us something, especially right here in this congregation today. When we let ourselves down, when we break the covenant of open minds and hearts with one another, we don't have to be destroyed or destroy. We don't have to leave the ark. We can begin again in love when we let ourselves find renewal on the ground of our being, on our common ground. We just have to find it. This is a covenant which holds Unitarian Universalists especially. We're not held together by a statement of beliefs. In fact, we are encouraged to find the pathways that make sense to us, to question deeply, and to support each other. The covenant which holds us is to be there for each other when we are lost, adrift, confused, angry, disagreeable, less than perfect. The covenant is to be there for each other. It's a spiritual practice to be courageous enough to see how far adrift our failures have taken us, and then to see that once again we can get in touch with what holds us and sustains us so that we can begin again in love. I've heard from many of you that others in this congregation have hurt your feelings, angered you, broken your heart. I think many of you probably know you have hurt some people yourself, even though that's hard to admit. I encourage you to find your way back to the solid ground of the covenant, to be there for each other. I encourage you to listen to each other, to be brave enough to confess or be open-hearted enough to forgive. And if it's too hard to do right now, if the pain is still too fresh, at least resolve to be willing to begin again in love. When you attend the congregational meeting this afternoon, be kind with one another, even if you disagree. Be gentle, do no harm, listen respectfully, and vote conscientiously. The world is tough enough. Let us find kindness in our congregation at least. I'm inspired by the words of Alandria Williams, the bold and courageous leader that just died, the UUA co-moderator who had just ended her term in June. She was only 41 years old. She was a lifelong Unitarian Universalist. And she felt passionately about so many things. She worked for the Highlander Institute. She was an educator and justice worker. But she said that after the shooting at her home congregation in Knoxville, Tennessee, she realized that what really mattered to her was the love that held the community together in spite of differences. And so in Alandria's memory, I'm going to hold that in my heart, that there are so many greater evils out in the world. We need to hold together with one another in spite of our differences. So it's natural to be hurt and in despair about what's going on in the world, about what we do to each other. And it's real. But it's so hard for people to acknowledge or apologize for things. So I want us to consider this. Instead of us waiting for individuals to acknowledge their shortcomings, perhaps we together can be a community together that offers grounding and support for all of the hurts. Maybe we can come together on our common ground of life and love and search together to discover and to create and to be the compassionate community that will offer forgiveness and loving hearts to all and to hold the pain and the hurts of us all. I must say that when I've thought about what you all have been going through in Charlottesville and in your congregation, I am in so much admiration of what you've had to survive. You've been through storms and disagreements and fights, and you've been in the floods. And added to that, this year our nation had an impeachment, a pandemic, and racial justice reckoning. And that is a lot for us to survive. There is a lot that we want to change. But all of that requires the challenge of finding compassion for each other. Today, I invite you to find the pathway forward together, or at least to resolve to begin again in love. Because this all becomes much more possible when you do it together. When you return to the ground of your being, when you touch common ground, when you finally come back ashore to your home and say, we begin again in love. So much is possible. Let's try to keep the circle of the community whole, for all of us need all of us to survive. Let's circle round to find our common ground, to hold each other as we strive to be renewed in our work for life and love. Let us circle round on the ground of our faith for ourselves and for all who share this planet with us today and for all our tomorrows. Amen.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole.
I offer a benediction now as we end our time of community worship. May you find your ground of centering that renews you today. And may you find the common ground which will bring us all into the covenant of love and justice for ourselves and the world. If in our time together you have found comfort or hope, share it with others. If you have found connection, offer that to others. And if you have found questions or uncertainty, invite others to help you find the answers that will keep you in touch with the ground of your being. We extinguish our chalice flame even as we hold its warmth in our hearts. We're going to hear pianist James Smith now, and then we'll all say hello for a few minutes before we take our lunch break and rejoin for the congregational meeting. Take it away, James. Peace.